Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Councilman Ed Rice-Singer, the Chairman of the Land Use Committee. Welcome to the chambers. The only ground rule that I have is turn off or put on vibrate your cell phone to give those who are going to testify. We're here for City Council Bill 19-0384. Before we start the hearing, I just want to say to my far left, we have Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Second to my left is Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark. The Vice President standing is Council Vice Chair of the committee, Councilwoman Shannon Sneed. To her left is Councilman Leon Pinkett, the sponsor of the bill. To my far right is Councilman Robert Stokes. Entering the chambers will be Councilman Eric Costello. And to my immediate right is the staff person to the committee, Jennifer Coates. We're also joined by Rebecca Simmons, who is the counsel for the City Council and works in the President's office. Also, Matt Stegman, who's with us, is from Mayor Bernard Jack Young's office. We are here, as I said, on City Council Bill 19-0384. This is a rezoning for the purpose of changing the zoning for the property known as 3302 Edgewood Street, also known as 3500 West Forest Park Avenue, Block 2911, Lot 023, as outlined in red on the accompanying plat, and rezoning from the R1 zoning district to the C1 zoning district. The public notice requirements have been met, and at this time, the sponsor of the bill, Councilman Leon Pinkett.
Thank you, Chairman. As you stated, the bill that's before us today is for the purpose of rezoning this particular property, 3302 Edgewood Street, from the R1 zoning district to the C1 zoning district. And I believe we'll hear testimony today, but we're also joined by representatives from the community. There's a survey in our packets, but also a representative from the President Association will be joining us as well as the owner of Edgewood. This is a unique property, and I hope that some of the images either on the screen or some of the plats will reflect the uniqueness of this property that was rezoned some time ago from a commercial use to residential, in that the images both in our packet and on the screen will clearly show that this is a commercial district, although it might be a small commercial district. But the way that this particular property is situated, on the plat, it is connected to a residential property, but there is no physical connection to that property. And so today, even in our request for rezoning, we are asking for the residential property to remain residential, but the commercial portion of the property, which should have never been changed, to be the commercial property that it is. And so after my remarks, I will even be introducing an amendment to the current bill to reflect that we do believe that the residential portion should remain residential, and I think that aligns with the will of the community. But the fact that the commercial property was only redesignated as residential because of its connection on the plat, but never was it really a residential property, similar to some of the other rezonings that come before this chamber, where the properties are actually one property or actually a residential property. These are two separate properties, one distinctly residential, one commercial. They just happen to be on the same plat. And so this has received overwhelming community support, which will be reflected today in the testimonies. The owner of the business has been working with the community to not only, which is quite unusual, is an active participant and stakeholder in the community, but also has created an MOU with the community that addresses any concerns that the community may have with the business and the improvements that the owner is considering to make in this particular property. So if it's okay at this time, I'd like to introduce the amendment that I'd like to make.
We'll wait till 2:30.
Okay.
Go with the amendment.
Will this be before planning gives their?
Yeah, well, we wait for the agencies.
Okay.
So we all have to take and testify. Then, when we go to do the vote on the bill, then we'll do the amendment.
Okay. If I can ask planning in their comments, because I think they're familiar with the amendment that I'm going to make, if within their testimony, if they can give their response to the amendments.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So before, you want to show there's some other retail in that block, right? Am I correct?
Correct.
Where is it?
On both sides. There's retail on both sides of the street.
Okay. And they're all non-conforming?
Good question.
They're all non-conforming, but they're open.
They're all non-conforming?
Okay.
Are they,
All right,
Well-
well,
they're tapping?
okay, I'll call planning
I don't-
and
I don't-
zoning.
That are
I don't know if that's.
All right, again, I just want the members and everyone to know that at 2 o'clock, Transportation Committee has their hearing, so I'm not trying to rush anybody, but,
I'll just say.
you know, so, anyone has any questions regards to the councilman, or so I'm gonna call on planning next? No?
Well, I do, but.
To the councilman?
Wait, well, no, to, I.
To the planning?
What he wants, which is what they're gonna say.
Okay, let me call on planning, go ahead.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. At its regular meeting on June 20th of this year, the Planning Commission considered City Council Bill 19-0384. The Planning Commission noted that the bill is for the purpose of changing the zoning of the property known as 3500 West Forest Park Avenue, as outlined in red on the accompanying plat that went with the bill, from the R1 zoning district to the C1 zoning district. The Planning Commission heard a staff report which recommended disapproval of this bill. It also heard testimony concerning the bill for and against, and voted to recommend disapproval of the bill, which is the report of the Planning Commission. If the members of the committee have a copy of the map that was attached to the bill, I would like to direct your attention to that, apropos the remarks of Councilman Pinkett. You will note that there is a zoning line dividing the R1 zoning district from the R6 zoning district that runs along Liberty Heights Avenue, and that is an alley. At the intersection of Edgewood Street with this alley, there are in fact 4 separate commercial uses or non-residential uses. This property is one of them. Directly across Edgewood Street, there is another non-residential use in a separate building on a property which is addressed on Forest Park Avenue. There is a non-residential use at the rear of the building, or the rear of the lot, that is at the corner of Liberty Heights Avenue and Edgewood Street. There is a non-residential use in the rear of the building that is also on the opposite corner, southeast corner of Edgewood Street and Liberty Heights. So the councilman is correct that this particular junction of this alley with Edgewood Street is in fact basically a commercial crossroads and has been a non-residential crossroads going back a long time. The records that the planning department had available to it suggested that this particular building that's the subject of this particular bill was constructed or authorized in 1932. It was shown as a liquor store starting about 1934. So it has been a non-residential use since that time. The property, however, was, because it shares its lot with a house at the corner of Forest Park Avenue in Edgewood, zoned residential, because that is the predominant use of the property. And the zoning that was adopted in 1971 was R2 zoning. The zoning that was adopted in 2017 is R1 zoning. So this property has functioned as a non-conforming commercial use since 1971. And it has functioned as a liquor store since before 1971. That's background information basically on this. The Planning Commission's findings basically were that because the bill proposed to rezone the entire lot, which would therefore authorize the use of the entire lot as a commercial premises, which could result in the raising of this structure and the house on the property and the substitution of a much larger commercial establishment of some type, that it would not be a good idea to support this bill, and therefore the Planning Commission recommended disapproval. Are there any questions?
Do Councilman Pinkett?
Yeah,
He's done.
Can you, you recognize that I have the intent of introducing an amendment to call for not the rezoning of the entire property, but a portion of. Can you speak to, I guess, the planning department's position if the residential portion of this property remains residential, but the portion that's clearly commercial would be commercial?
What's this?
From the point of view of the planning department, the predominant character of the neighborhood is residential. So therefore, it would be appropriate for the house and the front portion of the lot that goes with the house to be continued in a residential zoning district, such as the R1 district it's in now. Recognizing the fact that this property has functioned as a commercial property since its construction, as a non-residential property since its construction, I would leave to the bill's sponsor to determine whether, in fact, this was a mistake in
Yes.
zoning to have this particular building zoned residential or not. However, that is a decision that the city council is going to have to make.
And thank you, because, and that's the reason why the bill was introduced. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Councilwoman Clark,
All right.
use the microphone, please.
First of all, this is what I have as.
That is the map I'm referring to.
I see the picture.
Yes, ma'am.
Which one of these squares is the tavern?
It
or
is the
whatever?
building that touches the dividing line, the heavy black line that divides the
This one.
R6 zoning district from the R1 zoning district.
Can you come and point to it?
Can you please, I cannot get this straight. Is this an alley here?
Yes, this is an alley.
And that's
the building.
the building, it's facing an alley?
It faces Edgewood Street.
Oh, it faces Edgewood, but it's next to an alley. So that's the one,
The house on the corner
All
could
right,
have,
so
could
that's
have been
that.
addressed, depending upon its
house
front,
is-
as either 3500 West Forest Park or 3300 Edgewood. Okay? That is the reason that this building
What-
was given an address of 3302 Edgewood.
Okay.
Because
okay, so
3300 would have
3302
been the house that's at the front of the lot.
but can I just,
Yeah, Councilwoman, you want to point to it?
So this is the alley that,
Is this
Right.
the alley?
That is the alley. The alley forms the north side wall of the commercial building.
I see. So it's facing Edgewood.
The building itself fronts on Edgewood, yes.
And and we're talking about rezoning 3302 Edgewood. That's the bar, that's
Right.
the tavern.
And 3302 does not have a separate postal address because it is not a separate lot underneath the
It is
building,
the same lot with the house.
which is 3500
That-
Forest Park. Yes.
So it has a different address.
It's being given an address, but it can't be recognized in the city records because it is not a separate
So
lot.
it's all one lot.
Right. That's the problem here.
If we just rezoned, and this is phasing out under law because it's residentially zoned and it's 2 years after plus
Yes.
the 2-year phase out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So now we're here to rezone the whole property C1, except that's not really what the sponsor wants.
Well, the sponsor does not need that. Let's put it that way.
All right, well, okay, fair enough. So how do you separate the lot with a city council amendment? Is that correct? I've never
There is.
seen that.
Okay, there is no mandate that a zoning district boundary follow a lot line. It is often convenient to do so, but I will mention as an example from the past, the Harford Road Business Corridor and the Bel Air Road Business Corridor both have lots of varying depths. And when the decisions were made back in 1971 to allow zoning, commercial zoning on those streets, the agreement was the first 100 feet of depth, the maximum of 100 feet of depth, of any lot that fronted on Harford Road or Bel Air Road would be zoned commercial, and any remaining portion in the rear would be zoned residential. And that was a way to prevent encroachment into the residential neighborhoods of
Right,
commercial uses.
the way we did up in the Giddings corridor, but it was subdivided that way.
Well,
So
these
did-
lots were not subdivided. In other words, the back
it was
portion of
part
those
of
lots
that
simply
law
was
in 71?
unusable as commercial. That was done.
It was a zoning procedure that was,
It was the way the districts were
Mandated?
mapped. It was the way the districts were mapped at that time, yes.
so it was incorporated in this 1971 maps that way,
Yes, which are no longer in force, of course.
of course. But that's how it got done.
That's how it got done.
Okay, so
because
how do we legislatively do that without going to a subdivision with planning?
what you would need to do is simply amend the map that's attached to this bill to draw a line, instead of around the entire lot, to draw a line around the portion of the lot that includes this building. And that would become your zoning district boundary for the proposed C1 zone.
Which he's going to do an
That would be
amendment.
what it would take. And then, of course, amend the text of the bill to indicate a portion of 3500 Forest Park Avenue instead of entirety of Forest Park Avenue, which is what the bill reads right now. And I'll let others go into the details there, because I'm not an attorney.
Gee. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else for the planning? No? BMZA?
The BMZA stands by its report as unfavorable.
DOT?
Mr. Chair, DOT stands by its report as no objection.
Law Department?
Good afternoon, Elena DePietro for the Law Department. The Law Department cannot approve this bill for form and legal sufficiency. This is one of the amortized liquor stores that were, subject to the 2-year amortization period, and we don't feel like there's any set of facts that would make this, the findings sufficient.
Okay, I just, the problem I have, I mean, I was here, Chairman, I mean, I worked on the, Transform Baltimore. And the thing is back then, I understand that the planning department had a list of non-conforming liquor stores and some bars. And at the time, it was, evidently, Councilman Pinkett wasn't here with Transform Baltimore. We had a former council person. But we had the opportunity, the council, that these non-conforms like this one, which is 3-1, which is residential, that we could put a bill in, and I did 2 of them in my district, to where we changed to C1 that was non-conforming, and everybody was on board. Planning, Law Department, BMZA, and now it's coming back to us that with some new council people, that the former council person, if he had the opinion that he didn't support liquor stores, then there was no, they didn't amend it, would say, hey, take it off the list. So now it's coming back to haunt us that any new council person that wants to put a bill in that says, hey, we want to change it to C1, we've got to go through this. And if the former council person, I know if, would have changed this to C1, we wouldn't be here now, and everybody be okay with it. I mean, that's what sticks into me. That's what I'm trying to say right now. But, so,
Mr.
Anyone
Chair,
else?
can I just add something, Mr. Chair?
Councilman.
And for me, this even goes beyond whether this is a liquor store or not. This is clearly a commercial establishment that is not the residential zoning, and it should have never reverted to residential. It should have always remained commercial. The only reason it became residential is because it is technically in the same lot as and I don't know how that happened, the history of how that happened, but clearly this is not one building connected. This is two separate entities. They just happen to be on the same lot, one residential, one commercial. This is an attempt to fix what clearly is an error.
Mr. Chair.
Clark,
I was just going to say that a lot of people in my district, the majority of establishments in this situation are subject to the 2-year phase-out. Like you, Councilman, Mr. Chairman, I had 2 where the neighborhood came to me and wanted them preserved. It was early in the process. We made them go through a meeting and MOU and everything else. And then because it was an overall rezoning, we had the privilege at that point to rezone specific properties accordingly. I think there were 7 in my district, and 2 out of them got rezoned because of neighborhood support and request. The rest are now probably part of the dozens that are going to the zoning board to say that they are eligible as residentially zoned. Well, no, they're not saying that. They're saying that the law is illegal. And I don't know if this is one of them in that process or not, but that's where most of them are right now. And so I'm just concerned because I have one last question, and I'm not trying to work against it, but I'm very troubled about it. How many of the properties along this, where it's facing, so it's facing this Edgewood, right?
Yes.
It's facing Edgewood. How many of the properties along Edgewood on either side of it are also commercially zoned? Commercially zoned.
As I indicated, at that particular junction of that alley and Edgewood, there are all residential zones applied to the 4 corners. They are all, however, commercial uses
Forest
at
and-
the
or
back of each of those 4 lots. The 4 lots themselves front on Liberty Heights or Forest Park. But the rear buildings in 3 of the cases are separate from the front buildings. In the 4th case, the building is built all the way from the front to the back lot line, and therefore part of the building is being used at the rear as a commercial establishment or a non-residential establishment.
Okay, whatever.
Councilman Dorsey?
Mr. Chair, it's pretty clear to me that these lots are developed along these houses and the properties along Edgewood Street here. It's pretty clear that these are developed differently than all of the surrounding houses on the adjacent blocks here. I think it's perfectly reasonable to conclude that a mistake was made and that these properties should have been split zoned in the first place. We didn't do it away entirely with split zoning in Transform, even though we did away with it significantly, but split zoning was retained, as we heard. I can attest from my district in certain places, and it's not unreasonable for us to believe that split zoning would have and should have been appropriately applied in this location. I would love to have an opportunity to second the bill sponsor's amendment to that effect.
Hey, we'll get to that. Next agency is HCD.
DHCD stands by our report recommending disapproval.
BDC.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Dave Garza for BDC, and we stand by our report and oppose Council Bill
Okay. Thank you.
1903.
Parking Authority.
Parking Authority does not oppose the passage of the bill.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to go on to public testimony. Caroline, you want to?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to let the community members.
Okay, all right. Testify, if I'm pronouncing this correct, Sharon Bradford. If I messed up, I apologize. Is that Sharon? You pull it down, too. Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sharon Bradford with the Forest Park Neighborhood Association, and I come down here to support the liquor store, Edgewood Liquors, Mr. Shin. The community believes in building relationships, and for years prior, even before this zoning took place, he has always been a viable part of our neighborhood. As I make my rounds, Mr. Shin is out there cleaning out in front, so he's definitely a part. And that whole block there, the community always considered it commercial. So to hear that it's residential, here educated me also, but you have other commercial establishments on that block also. And we totally support the Edgewood Liquors.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn Taylor?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, my name
Pull
is
it
Carolyn.
down.
My name is Carolyn Taylor, and I have lived in the Forest Park community for over 20 years. Well, I'm a lottery player, so I go around to Mr. Chin's store frequently, and over the years, there were some problems, but it has very much so improved. I mean, he keeps the store clean. He keeps the area clean around the, his property. And I'm just here to support him. So that's
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Martin?
He-
Oh, question? Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Come on back. Yeah, you have.
No, go,
No,
I'll
you-
ask the next person. It's okay, come on.
Who wanted this?
I just wondered. They said,
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Martin, and I have, and my family has been a resident in the Ashburton Forest Park area for over 60 years. We've known Edgewood Liquor Store to be a part of our community all that time. My family used to operate the beauty shop, if you can see. Right next door used to be a barber shop and a beauty shop there, and they stayed there until, of course, their passing. Many of our residents in the community are seniors, and the Edgewood Liquor and the other stores that are adjacent to Edgewood Liquors have enjoyed a good quality of life, because in that area, it's really no place to shop. And the seniors get the exercise. You see them walking there. And Mr. and Mrs. Chin have been a great social support for them. They pay their lottery. They have their holiday libation there. And so we've seen many times from the time of Mayor McKeldin, when Frank Robinson was in that area, they lived in that area. They frequented that area. And we've seen everybody from all of the former mayors and everybody lived in the Ashburton, Cedardale area. So we appreciate Edgewood Liquor Store. And if they were to be removed, it's a significant distance to get the quality of service and those that he provides to the community. It's a significant distance before they can get anyplace else. I think Gwynn Oak is the closest place, and Mondawmin. And so those seniors, because of right now, the improving state of the city, right now it's not a good time to change, so they would have to change their whole way of life. And I think that it's a quality of life issue. So I'd like to thank you guys, and I hope you consider this favor.
I just have a quick question. I just want to make sure. So a lot of our stores, the corner stores, have loitering and people hanging out front, and neighbors saying, you know, get rid of that, you know, close the store down. But you guys, no, we won't look through the 311 and 911 reports to see any type of residents calling in because of this loitering or anything out front of the corner store. You guys don't have this at this corner store.
I can say this, my family's been living there for a significant period of time, and the individuals that I know that live in that community haven't had a lot of problems with all those things. That we've seen every community has its problems, let's be real. But I can say this, the community association, along with the residents in that area, along with the business owners, do everything they can to make sure that individuals can enjoy that good quality of life through a clean area. We don't have a lot of pests and other problems that many parts of the city still have, and they're working on positively. But I think that this is a quality store, small, it's a very small business, and the other businesses there are small. As a matter of fact, there are 3 businesses that I can name that our families. There's a convenience store there, it's a hair braiding store there, it's a church right in proximity to that. And so all of us, we understand the dynamics of the city, but we are nestled in the community, and we're able to frequent this store with a reasonable amount of safety and security, and we understand and know each other in that community. So we hope that you will rule favorably to keep Edgewood Liquor Store there, because it is pretty much a landmark in our community. It's been ever since I was a little boy, and it's been changed hands over a period of time, but I think that Mr. and Mrs. Chin have kept up that same quality of service that those other previous owners did.
Okay, any?
I just wanted to say, is it Mr. White?
My name is Paul Martin.
Paul Martin.
Paul Martin,
Mr. White, what the store, whatever we do here today, if we did nothing, which looks as if we'll do something, but if we did nothing, the store could stay because it's a legitimate non-conforming use in a residentially zoned building. It could stay there as long as it continuously operated.
Yes, ma'am.
The difference is, because it's residentially zoned, the law of the new zoning code says they just couldn't sell alcohol there. So it sounds like a convenience store.
Yeah.
And if it stays zoned residential, it could be that, but he couldn't sell the liquor. The whole law was about phasing out liquor, alcohol sales in predominantly residentially zoned areas. And there was a 2-year deadline by which that had to happen. So a lot of stores complied, but a lot of them are in circuit court saying that 2-year law wasn't fair. But if they got rid of the alcohol sales, they could stay there forever as a non-conforming use because it's a legitimate non-conforming use. I just want people to know that. They
Yes,
wouldn't
ma'am.
have to leave.
Yes, ma'am, and it is the libation or the liquor which makes it unique to our community.
I see.
Our community does not have to venture out to different parts of the city.
I see.
If in fact you were to remove the liquor from this particular place, which many of our neighbors and friends in that area enjoy,
Sure.
we would have to venture a significant distance just to get it.
I see.
It
I
makes the
understand.
uniqueness of our community, that in our community, we have a liquor store, and also across the street there is already a convenience store, which gives our community tooth.
I got you.
So I'm saying, so the seniors, they wouldn't have to travel more than, I would say from, I don't know exactly the distance, from Edgewood all the way up to Gwynn Oak to get it. Our
Gotcha.
predominantly senior community has easy access to get these libations and any other thing that they want.
Mr. Martin, I think.
Mr.
that
Chair, can I
it's
say
a good
something?
question, but I think that the community met, they supported this, and so we need to move on. I want to thank you for your testimony.
much.
Thank you.
At this time, I need Caroline to come up and do the finding of facts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Caroline Hecker, Rosenberg Martin, on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Shin, who's here this afternoon with us. I've submitted written findings for the committee's consideration. I'd be happy to walk through them, but I understand we're running short on time. I'm not sure that it's necessary. I think this is a very clear case of mistake. This property, along with those adjacent to it, has been used as a commercial business for almost 100 years at this point, and it was clearly overlooked during the Transform Baltimore process. This is the only one that is similarly situated like this on this corner is the only one that will be forced to close based on the provisions governing alcoholic beverage sales in residential districts. So it's not like its neighbors who can stay open. This one will have to close, and I think it, in that manner, very clearly was a mistake. There is precedent for split zoning properties. It's not something we do all the time, but I think that in this case, this is something that is a very targeted way to achieve the desired result and correct the mistake that was made during Transform. We support the amendment that Councilman Pickett is prepared to offer to the committee, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to adopt the findings of fact. This seems very clear to me.
Moved by Councilman Costello. Do I have a second? Who second? Pinkett second. All those in favor of the finding of facts say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The finding
Nay.
of facts is
Nay.
nay. Let the record show that Councilwoman Clark is a no vote on the finding of facts. Now we need the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the amendment.
Who moved it? Costello. Costello moved the amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Dorsey. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Let the record show that Councilwoman Clark voted no against the amendments. Now we're ready to vote for the bill as amended.
Mr. Chair, I'd like
Do I
to
have a
move the bill.
motion?
Yes.
Motion by Costello. Do I have a second? Second by Dorsey.
Sir.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Reisinger votes yes. Sneed?
Yes.
Sneed is yes. Clark?
No.
Clark is no. Costello? Costello is yes. Dorsey?
Yeah.
Dorsey, yes. Middleton is absent. She's at a Mako meeting. Pinkett? Yes. Pinkett, yes. Stokes? Yes. Stokes is yes. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 6 yes with 1 no and 1 absent. And this will come out December 6th, tomorrow. Yeah. It'll come out December 6th. We'll have the amendment. We're good. Okay, we'll come out tomorrow, December the 6th. 5th. The 5th?
Yes.
Okay. I'll say it again, December the 5th for second reader. Bill 19-0384 is concluded. Thank you. Adjourn.
He's right.
That's tomorrow. Yeah, there's a special